Every single time I jump into the dark zone or I go and play a match of conflict, without fail, there's going to be someone in the enemy team using a status effect build or some way of blinding you, putting you on the bleed, burning you, or foaming you. And I feel like hazard protection builds are much needed in any team, and you need to have one, at least one, in your loadout. I personally do not like running hazard builds because you generally don't have a lot of damage. But what if I told you that this hazard protection build will not just make you immune to every single status effect, but also give you over 270% critical hit damage? Enjoy the footage, enjoy the gameplay, and when you get back, we'll go through the build.
Rogue Defender drone detected. Rogue Stinger Hive detected. An agent needs assistance. An agent needs assistance.
There are no more reinforcements.
System malfunctioning. System reactivated. Boost about to activate. Allies are acquiring the boost. The boost has been taken by ally. Agent down. Rogue Stinger Hive detected. An agent needs assistance. The boost is being taken by allies. Rogue Explosive Seeker Mine detected. Allies have acquired the boost. System curtailed.
If the enemy doesn't turn this around, they'll be pulled out.
System reactivated. An agent needs assistance. Rogue Stinger Hive detected.
halfway to the finish.
Rogue defender drone detected. System malfunctioning. System back online. Agent down.
The enemy can't keep up. They're about to get pulled out.
Serious trauma detected.
Hopefully you guys did enjoy the gameplay. So as you can see, we can dish out quite a lot of damage. So I'm going to make this short and sweet and to the point. We want to try get our hazard protection to around 90 to 94%. That's generally the sweet spot. I've noticed with foam, you don't even need to go up to there. Even 80-85% is okay. You're only foamed for a split second and you can get out of it quite quickly. I guess it depends on how much damage the enemies are doing, whether or not they're going to beam you down really quickly. So I've actually got this build ready to showcase to you. If you're on PC or you're on console, it'll determine what talents you use, and I'm going to go through the different variants. Now I've tried multiple talents like concussion, vigilance, and a few others. We'll go through that in a second. Let's take a look at the specialization. Now it is up to you which one you want to be using. Ideally, or preferably, you'd want to be going for something like demolitionist, because you do get 20% burn resistance, which means you can spec into other resistances, because it is difficult to reach hazard protection without going overboard with some of the pieces which are not very good, like 511. Used to be good, not good anymore. So you need to read all of these little additions and see which one suits you. There are a couple that might help you with your hazard protection build, but I have chosen firewall simply because I want to make sure I have the striker shield and this just incredibly strong armor kit that just really helps me push players in the dark zone or in conflict. So it's up to you whatever you want to use. There are different elements. You can also use survivalist if you want to give your teammates armor. Basically what happens is you heal your teammates whenever you use an armor kit, which is really, really good. Armor kits now repair over 5 seconds instead of instantly, but also apply to group members within 20 meters. There are a bunch of things. You also get skill haste reductions. Go through it, guys. It's always good to go through the specializations and understand them and to know which one might benefit you. But like I said, we're going to go for firewall. Now SMG and assault rifle damage need to be activated. Let's take a look at the build. So we have got the backfire SMG. To be honest, I use an assault rifle as my primary. I had a Fenris chest. What we're going to do is I'm going to talk you through the differences and how to change this into a console or a PC build or an assault rifle SMG build. So we're immune to bleed. So obviously the backfire SMG would be the best way to fully utilize this, because you can never really use this gun without it. Otherwise you just damage yourself and make yourself run incredibly slowly. So we're going to fully utilize the backfire, and I recommend it. This is how you get the most amount of damage. Yes, you would need to stack it in a certain way, but it is quite easy to do it, as you saw from the gameplay. So if you wanted to transfer this build into a PC variant, what you would use is concussion instead of versatile. That's what I would do, and use an assault rifle with a Fenris chest piece with the same thing, unbreakable, but every attribute would be headshot damage. It's more efficient to go for hazard protection and headshot damage rather than critical hit chance and critical hit damage, because you have to spec into 2 of them. The reasons why I've gone through this is because we can get huge 200% critical hit damage from this SMG. Now in the real world, we're going to be getting about 10 to 40% extra critical hit damage, which is still very good. on the first enemy player that you encounter, but if you fight 2 or 3 people, you can see numbers over 100% critical hit damage, especially if they are tanky. So that's what I would say go for if you're a PC player: headshot damage, concussion with a Fenris chest, and maybe the FAMAS within sync. Now for console, if you don't or you can't hit your headshots, you could go for that if you can, but if you can't, go for critical hit chance, critical hit damage. Versatile is going to be your best friend. Concussion does work with an SMG, but it's very difficult. You have to get right up close, and the reticle does bounce all over the place. So versatile and unbreakable, in my opinion, from what I've tested, is probably the most efficient and more fun to play with. There are a couple that you can consider, like companion. You know, whenever your teammates are near you or you have a skill, companion could give you more damage. Vigilance could be an option if you want to stay at longer ranges. There are many different talents that you can use, but this is going to be more for close range and pushing. It is completely up to you. There's so many different talent combinations you guys can go for, even for more damage like obliterate on the chest, but I recommend these two. All round, it's going to be great for PC and console because you can still hit high numbers to the head. So we have got 1.5 million armor with the backfire SMG. So it rolls with SMG, crit chance, and magazine size. Magazine size is quite nice, even though it is only 55. Some SMGs come stock with like 40 or 50 bullets. So payment in kind. Dealing damage to enemies adds a stack of 1% critical hit damage up to 200 stacks, lasting 10 seconds. When you reload, you actually damage yourself 0.5% armor damage per stack. You put yourself on the bleed, but because we are bleed immune, this will not affect us. The secondary is important because when we are using versatile, you have to have 2 separate weapons, and an assault rifle is going to be great. The FAMAS from close range is the best AR. From long range, use the SOCOM MK16. Damage to targets out of cover within sync. So you modify it, just make sure you have enough critical hit chance. So we have got this build at approximately, let's have a look. So we've got 86% hazard protection. We are 96% for bleed, 96% for burn. The other ones aren't too important because they only last for a split second. What you can do is just swap your modifications. That's how I have this build set up. So we've got a burn resistance mod. All you have to do, for example, here I've got critical hit damage. I can put an ensnare mod if I wanted to be immune from foam, but it's negligible because it doesn't even affect me. So it's up to you how much what modifications you put on, how much resistance you have from a certain type. Like disrupt resistance doesn't matter at all, to be honest. So because we get our skills back pretty much instantly anyway, and the stagger is what really gets us. So let's take a look at the build. This is going to be quite difficult to make, if I'm honest. It took me quite a long time to get this build where it is now, even though it's not optimized. So you're going to need a Jarl piece. You're going to need a Cheska 2-piece. Whether or not you want to use SMG or not depends on Sokolov or Fenris. Then we're going to need to use best in stock for the damage, Contractor's gloves, and Fox's prayer knee pads. And you're going to try get hazard protection. So the idea, if you want to use the build I'm using now for crit damage and crit chance, we're going to go for critical hit chance or damage and hazard protection rolled on every single piece. If you want to use a PC variant, headshot damage and hazard protection. That's going to be your best 2. Explosive resistance could become an option if you're getting pestered by the mortars, but you could just use a jammer pulse or this sticky bomb. It doesn't matter. It's not that hard to get rid of the mortar turrets and things like that, or the quick sticky bombs could damage you, but because we have quite high armor, it doesn't really matter. Right, so let's take a look now. So we know that we have got this SMG and this assault rifle. Like I said, Cheska, hazard, crit chance, bleed resistance mod, then chest piece, crit damage, hazard, crit chance. Unbreakable is just too good to pass up. It really does save you a lot of the time. It makes you incredibly tanky. Then the holster, hazard protection, critical damage with an armor roll. Backpack, versatile. We've got crit chance, hazard protection, and armor. Amplifies total weapon damage for 10 seconds when swapping between your primary and secondary weapons if they are different. 35%. Now, this has been nerfed. I don't know why they haven't updated the UI, but the damage is quite high, and it's not exactly what people say it is. I think it supposedly got dropped to 15%, but trust me, it still makes a big difference. You can still hit high numbers. It is definitely worth using, and it's fun to play with. So shotguns, SMGs, 35%. You can use a shotgun if you want to, not hold the same weapon though, because at most once per 5 seconds per weapon type. So if they are different, so just have a look here. When swapping between your primary and secondary weapons, if they are different, so you cannot use 2 SMGs, for example. So we have got for assault rifles, it's not going to be that much, going to be 10%, but it still makes a difference considering this is mainly a SMG build. So let's take a look at the gloves. Now, this is going to be quite tricky. Hazard protection, armor. We have had them in the vendors recently. If you guys want to check out my vendor reset videos, go have a look at this week's one. I don't think we have any Contractors of Fox's Prayer, but we need to have hazard protection. Then the knee pads, we can have hazard protection as well. So it's going to be quite difficult, but the multiplicative damage is just best in slot. This build does a lot of damage. Like I said before, I do not really like hazard protection builds, but this is going to be a must-have for any player who wants to PvP in this game. This build still one-clips any player in the Dark Zone or Conflict, and we can survive long fights, bleed hives, explosive turrets, or the bleed from them. Also fire, because you cannot actually shoot your gun or aim. You can hip fire, but hip firing got nerfed, so we need to be resistant to fire. So if you guys are struggling with hazard protection for your build, have Demolitionist on. It could be good. But like I said before, this shield is just too good. Make sure you do have percentage-based damage increases on the modifications, 5% damage bonus, then shield health all round. Also, you can use the Jammer Pulse or the EMP Sticky, put whatever modification you want there. Let's take a look at these stats. Like I said before, we can get over 200%, well, we can get 200%, so 270% critical damage. Now, you can actually stack this on enemies like hives and skills, so you can get a lot of crit damage from this build if you play clever or play smart. It's not as hard as you would think. So let's take a look now further on. You can pause the video if you guys want to take a look. I've just capped out 60. I think if I remove a crit chance mod, I'll be at something like 58, so it's fine. I wanted to make sure I'm at the top. Pause the video if you would like to see any of the other stats. Like I said before, we don't need to go too high on the hazard protection. It is difficult to obtain. Hasbro, do not use 511. It's just a waste of a slot. So we still have good damage, and we're immune to bleed and fire, which is important. If you want to have less crit damage, which you can, just put on I would personally say, ensnare resistance, even though none of the other ones are really going to hurt you that much. And yeah, so that's it for this build, guys. Please make sure you let me know in the comments what you think. Like I said before, hazard protection is something that you need to have when you run into a fight and guys are putting on hives. You can survive them, even though, remember, hives do initial skill damage, so do chem launchers, so you will still take damage. It's just that the bleed will not hurt you, because the bleed and fire is what gets you, especially because status effects are so incredibly strong in the game right now. Also because they are bugged. If someone shoots a sticky at you in the Dark Zone and they go back into the checkpoint, it counts as PvE damage and does more than double the damage. So make sure to leave a like, subscribe, click that notification bell, and I'll be seeing everybody very soon in the next video. Peace out, guys.